No one expected this moment, not after the headlines, not after the political pressure, not after the deals were supposed to be done and sealed, yet here we are. Canada's Air Command just received a new update on Sweden's Gripen, a fighter jet that was supposed to be out of the competition, forgotten, replaced by the predictable choice of the F-35. But the story didn't end there. It just went quiet, and now it has returned, louder than ever, because while Canada moved forward with the F-35 on paper, Sweden was preparing something else behind the curtain. Something precise. Something disruptive. Something that directly answers the biggest weaknesses Canada now faces with its new aircraft. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. For years, Canada has stood at a crossroads, a vast northern frontier, a coastline longer than any other nation on Earth, Arctic winds, frozen bases, endless sky, and a military task unlike almost any other nation: defend a massive territory with a small number of aircraft. For that mission, speed matters, endurance matters, survivability matters, maintenance matters, flexibility matters. But the world kept telling Canada, you must buy the F-35. Everyone else is doing it. And in time, the decision was made. The US smiled, NATO nodded, the defense industry clapped. But as soon as Canada started preparing for integration, the problems came. Arctic runway conditions, maintenance logistics, fuel infrastructure, software dependency, cost spiraling like winter storms. The F-35 is powerful, no one denies that, but it requires a perfect environment to be perfect. And Canada does not live in perfection. It lives in ice. It lives in distance. It lives in emergencies where there is no time to wait for a technician in Texas. Sweden understood that, because Sweden has lived that. So Sweden did something few expected. They didn't complain, they didn't criticize, they simply returned, with new Gripen E data tailored specifically to Canada's environment, not a sales pitch, a demonstration, and it struck a nerve. The Gripen E was never designed to look impressive on brochures. It was designed to stay in the air when every system around it collapses. No satellite link? It can still fight. GPS jammed? It can still navigate. Runway destroyed. It launches from a 2-lane road in the forest. Maintenance crew unavailable. 5 technicians and a power cart. Cold weather. This jet was born in it. The Gripen E is like a winter wolf. Quiet, decisive, unfazed by the storm. While others demand heated hangars, the Gripen thrives in the dark. Canada knows these conditions. Canada lives these conditions, which is why, despite political pressure, despite the official F-35 procurement, Canadian Air Command analysts kept the Gripen file open, not closed, not deleted, not ignored, just waiting. And then came the new Swedish update, a recently completed series of Arctic performance trials, real snowfall, real wind, real icy landing surfaces, and the Gripen E passed with almost absurd reliability. No delays, no weather hold, no ground crew panic, no grounding for stealth coating protection, just flight after flight after flight. Meanwhile, Canada is now learning the realities of operating a stealth fighter in sub-zero conditions, stealth skin cracks, sensors fog, maintenance time skyrockets. A jet is only powerful when it's airborne. A grounded fighter is a sculpture, and Canada cannot defend its north with sculptures. This is the moment everything shifted, because when Sweden delivered the update, it wasn't just performance numbers. It included a proposal, a strategic partnership Canada didn't expect, not just buy our jet, but shared cold weather testing facilities, joint Arctic defense training, technology co-development, north-to-north defense alignment, industrial production participation inside Canada. In simple words, Sweden offered collaboration, not dependency. While the US says, you will operate the F-35 the way we say, Sweden says, you will operate Gripen the way you need to. That difference is enormous, and Canada noticed. So, what happens when a quiet alternative suddenly becomes relevant again? The defense conversation reopens. Not officially, not yet, but behind closed doors. Canadian Air Command wants a backup plan, a contingency, a second option, in case costs rise, delays hit, or operational challenges prove too heavy. And that backup is the Gripen E, A jet that doesn't just fly. It fits the landscape, fits the climate, fits the mission. No one expected this. Not Washington, not the contractors, not the defense lobby. Yet here it is. A Nordic fighter re-entering the Canadian conversation, not dead, not gone, just waiting for the right moment to prove what the world keeps realizing. Brains beat budgets. And let's be clear, this isn't about embarrassment or rivalry. The F-35 is an extraordinary fighter, in the right conditions. It is an intelligence hub, a network core, a technology centerpiece, but Canada doesn't need a flying command center. It needs a shield, a patrol, a guardian of the wide, empty sky. The Gripen E is that guardian, fast to respond, cheap to operate, impossible to ground. And here is the quiet truth military strategists rarely say publicly. The jet that flies the most is the jet that matters the most. Availability wins wars, not theory. And the Gripen has the highest availability rates in its class, not by accident, but by design. So what is the global impact of this moment? Countries are now watching Canada closely, because if Canada reopens the Gripen option, even unofficially, it changes everything. It tells NATO, standardization is not the same as strategy. It tells smaller nations, you don't have to follow the giant. It tells defense planners, survival matters more than prestige. It tells superpowers, you cannot force alignment forever. Brazil already chose the Gripen. Finland almost did. India is evaluating it. The Czech Republic and Hungary fly it operationally with pride. And now, Canada is thinking again. Thinking instead of following. Calculating instead of reacting. Questioning instead of accepting. That is how strategic shifts begin. Quietly. One reconsideration at a time. And so we arrive at the final truth. Sweden didn't return with a sales pitch. They returned with evidence, with Arctic data, with mission fit, with respect for Canada's real operational reality. And that changed the tone, that reopened the conversation, that brought the Gripen back into the air. Not as a rival, not as a protest, but as an option that refuses to die because it makes sense. In the end, Canada doesn't need the biggest jet, or the flashiest jet, or the most expensive jet. Canada needs the jet that flies when the world turns cold. And that jet may once again come from Sweden. In the silent tension of the Arctic sky, the smartest fighter is the one that never leaves it.